The sun was sinking low over the rolling hills of San Marcos, California, casting a golden glow across the sleek modern villa that Mara Kendrick had spent half her life dreaming of and the last 15 years building. At 42, she stood on the rooftop terrace, her calloused hands resting on the smooth steel railing, gazing out at the valley below. The lights of the city flickered to life in the twilight, a constellation of tiny stars mirroring the ambition that had fueled her every waking moment. This house wasn't just a structure of glass and stone. It was a testament to her defiance, her grit, her refusal to let the world or anyone in it define her worth. Mara had clawed her way up from nothing. Born into a family that saw her as the dependable workhorse rather than the dreamer, she'd spent her 20s and 30s in the male-dominated worlds of construction and real estate development. She'd endured the dismissive smirks of contractors, the whispered rumors about how a woman couldn't possibly handle the heavy machinery or the cutthroat deals, and the endless nights hunched over blueprints in a cramped trailer while her peers partied. Every beam, every pane of tinted glass, every slab of imported Brazilian walnut flooring in her villa had been earned through sleepless nights, maxed-out credit lines, and a stubborn refusal to quit. The south-facing wall, a seamless expanse of transparent panels, let the sunset flood the interior with amber light, a daily reminder that she'd made it. Against all odds, she'd made it. Tomorrow was supposed to be the crown jewel of that VY Tory, a housewarming party to end all housewarming parties. She'd hired an elite event planner, booked catering from Le Jardin, her favorite French bistro in town, and invited the handful of people who'd stood by her through the chaos, colleagues who'd seen her sweat through deadlines, architects who'd turned her sketches into reality, and a few old friends who remembered her before the calluses and the steel in her voice. It was going to be perfect. A celebration of everything she'd fought for. But perfection, Mara would soon learn, was a fragile thing. She'd driven back to the villa that morning, a Saturday, to do one final walkthrough before the chaos of setup began. The air smelled of fresh paint and the lavender she'd planted along the winding driveway. Her keys jingled in her hand as she approached the front door. A massive slab of frosted glass framed in brushed steel. She paused, frowning. From inside, a voice drifted through the wall, high-pitched, familiar, and utterly unwelcome. "Don't you think this would be ideal for the ceremony? The mezzanine could hold the band, and the backyard's got space for at least 200 guests under a tent. It's practically begging for a wedding." Mara's stomach twisted. She knew that voice. It belonged to her younger sister, Tessa. Pushing the door open, she stepped inside, her boots clicking against the polished walnut floors. The sight that greeted her was a punch to the gut. Tessa stood in the center of the open-plan living room, her auburn hair swept into a casual bun, gesturing animatedly to a blonde woman in a tailored blazer who clutched a tablet and nodded enthusiastically. A wedding planner, no doubt. They were pacing the space like it was theirs, pointing at the soaring ceilings, the sleek kitchen island, the infinity pool vy Cybele through the glass doors. "Tessa," Mara said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through their chatter. "What the hell are you doing here?" Tessa spun around, her face lighting up with a grin that Mara had long ago learned to distrust. "Oh, you're back. I thought Mom and Dad told you. They've decided this place is mine now, well, ours, mine and Ethan's. A wedding gift. We're going to start our life here." The words hit Mara like a sledgehammer. She stood frozen, the keys still dangling from her fingers, her mind racing to process the absurdity of it. Tessa, the baby of the family, 32 and perpetually coddled, who'd never held a job longer than 6 months, who'd spent her life coasting on charm and other people's generosity, claiming her house. The house Mara had poured every dime, every drop of sweat, every sleepless night into? It was laughable. It was infuriating. It was a betrayal so deep it made her chest ache. "This is my house," Mara said, forcing her voice to stay steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "I built it. I paid for it. Every inch of it is mine." Tessa tilted her head, offering that infuriatingly pitying smile she perfected as a teenager. "But Mara, you're alone. You don't need all this space. Mom and Dad said you'd get ithy, figured you'd want to help the family. Ethan and I are serious about settling down, and this place is perfect." Before Mara could respond, the back door swung open, and her parents stepped inside without so much as a knock. Her mother, Diane, swept in with a bright smile, immediately joining the wedding planner to point out where the floral arrangements should go. Her father, Greg, lingered near the kitchen, avoiding Mara's gaze as if he could sense the fury radiating off her. "What is going on?" Mara demanded, her voice rising now, echoing off the high ceilings. "Why is there a wedding being planned in my house?" "Lydia, honey," Diane said, turning to her with that syrupy tone Mara had always hated. "Tessa's getting married. This house is just too big for one person. You're always working, never here. We thought it'd be better for Tessa and Ethan to start their family in a place like this." Mara's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. She leaned against the stair railing for support, the cool metal grounding her as a wave of disbelief crashed over her. "Better for Tessa? This isn't some hand-me-down you get to pass around. I spent 15 years building the Izumi SAYNGS, my time, my life. And you're just jevwying it away." Greg finally spoke, his voice gruff and patronizing. "Mara, don't make this a bigger deal than it is. You're successful. You can build another house whenever you want. Tessa needs stability. She's starting a family." A dry, bitter laugh escaped Mara's lips, reverberating through the marble-floored foyer slab she'd handpicked from a quarry in Portugal and had shipped across the Atlantic. "You're telling me that because I've worked my ass off, I should just hand it over to someone who's never lifted a finger? Tessa, who's never paid a bill on time, who's never had to fight for anything." Tessa stepped forward, her eyes flashing with a confidence Mara knew was borrowed from their parents' endless indulgence. "You don't get it, Mara. Ethan and I are serious. Mom and Dad just want us to have a strong start. You've always been fine on your own." "A strong start," Mara repeated, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. "One you didn't earn. One you didn't sweat for." The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken history. Diane tucked a strand of graying hair behind her ear. A nervous tick Mara had seen 1,000 times when her mother felt cornered. "Mara, you're exhausted. Let's not fight. Besides, your father handled the paperwork. It's all flexible legally." That word flexible lit a fuse in Mara's brain. She straightened, her eyes narrowing as the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't a spontaneous overreach. This was calculated, premeditated, dressed up as a generous family gesture. Without a word, she crossed to the dining table, flipped open her laptop, and pulled up a series of files she'd meticulously organized over the years. Construction contracts, building permits from the San Marcos city office, invoices for materials, paid in full from her personal account. And most crucially, the property deed registered solely under Mara J. Kendrick. She turned the screen toward them. "Here's the documentation. Every payment, every permit, every signature. This VYLLA belongs to Meligali undeniably. Not you, Dad. Not you, Mom. And certainly not you, Tessa. I handled every step myself. I have recordings of contractor meetings, bank statements, everything. If I have to, I'll take this to court." Silence swallowed the room. Tessa's lips parted, her face draining of color. "But Dad said." "Your dad," Mara cut in, locking eyes with Greg, "had nothing to do with this. I dealt with the Department of Building and Safety. I waited 6 months for the permits. I signed every check. You want to test me? Go ahead." Diane's voice broke the stillness, quivering with desperation. "Mara, you can't do this. You're tearing this family apart over a house." "No, Mom," Mara said quietly, her tone icy. "You're tearing it apart by treating me like a doormat. Everyone out. Now." Tessa's mouth opened to protest, but Greg held up a hand, his face hardening. "Mara, you're crossing a line. The line was crossed when you walked in here and started planning a wedding without asking me." She shot back. "The line was crossed when you decided my hard work was just a gift for someone else because I don't have a husband or kids to validate it. You've got 10 minutes to leave, or I'm calling the cops for trespassing." Diane's eyes welled with tears. Tessa glared at her, clutching the hem of her sweater as if it could anchor her crumbling fantasy. Greg turned away, shoulders slumped. They shuffled out, Diane sobbing softly, Tessa muttering something under her breath about Mara being heartless. The door clicked shut behind them, and Mara stood alone in the vast, quiet space, her hands trembling but her resolve unbroken. She poured herself a glass of water, the cool liquid steadying her nerves, and sank into a chair at the kitchen island. The silence was deafening, but it was hers. For the first time in years she'd drawn a line and she hadn't backed down. The fallout came fast and fierce. Within hours her phone buzzed incessantly, texts from aunts, uncles, cousins she hadn't spoken to in years, all echoing the same refrain. Family comes first, Mara. Don't be selfish. Her Aunt Clara called her cold as a stone wall. Her cousin Jake, who'd once borrowed $500 from her and never paid it back, texted, "Houses can be rebuilt, but family ties? Once they're gone, they're gone." Not one of them asked why she'd done it. Not one of them cared that she'd spent her life building something only to have it nearly snatched away. She set the phone aside and brewed a pot of chamomile tea, the steam curling up from the mug as memories flooded back. She was 16 when Tessa broke their mother's favorite vase and blamed it on Mara, who'd been grounded for a month while Tessa got a new pair of sneakers as consolation. At 25, Mara had loaned Tessa $2,000 for rent, only to find out later it went to a weekend in Vegas. This wasn't new, it was just bigger, bolder, more audacious. And this time Mara wasn't letting it slide. The phone rang again. Tessa's name flashed on the screen. Mara let it go to voicemail, sipping her tea as the notification popped up. She hesitated, then pressed play. "Mara, you should take a good look at yourself." Tessa's voice sneered through the speaker, dripping with venom. "You're jealous. You've always been jealous. I'm the one people love, the one they choose, the one getting married in a big, beautiful wedding. And you? You've got a fancy house and a bunch of papers no one gives a damn about. That's not winning, Mara. That's just sad." The message cut off. Mara stared at the phone, the word jealous ringing in her ears. It was Tessa's favorite weapon, a lazy accusation she'd lobbed at Mara since they were kids. Jealous of Tessa's charm, her effortless way of gliding through life, her ability to fail upward while Mara toiled. She blocked Tessa's number with a single tap, then her parents' numbers too. The world went quiet and for once it felt like freedom. But the storm wasn't over. By Monday, her inbox overflowed with emails from relatives across the state. Her Uncle Tom wrote, "How could you ruin Tessa's wedding like this?" A family friend, Mrs. Larson, who'd once bragged about Mara's success at church, emailed, "I can't believe you've become so controlling. We were so proud of you." Mara laughed a sharp, hollow sound and deleted them all. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, scrolling through every file related to the VYLLA project, initial sketches, permit applications, payment records. She backed it all up to an external drive and emailed a copy to her attorney Julian Torres with a simple note, "Get ready. They might try something." The next morning the doorbell rang. The security monitor showed Tessa standing on the porch, holding a pristine white wedding dress, her fiancé Ethan beside her looking uncomfortable. Mara didn't move. Tessa rang again, then knocked, her expression shifting from hopeful to petulant. Mara stayed put, watching through the camera as they finally gave up and left. A notification pinged. Cloud backup of footage complete. She smiled. Whatever Tessa was planning, Mara was ready. 3 days later, Julian called with news that made her blood run cold. "The restraining order's approved," he said. "Tessa, Greg, and Diane are barred from coming within 100 feet of your property. I've sent them the official notices and I've got all the footage and emails from that day backed up. If they push this, we've got a slam dunk case." Mara exhaled, the weight on her chest lifting slightly. "Thanks, Julian. I just want to live here without looking over my shoulder." "Trust me," he replied. "They'll think twice now." She threw herself into the housewarming party preparations, determined to reclaim the moment. The guest list shrank to the essentials, people who'd earned her trust. When the day arrived, the VYLLA buzzed with life. Sarah, her best friend since college, arrived first with a bouquet of sunflowers. "This place is unreal, Mara," she said, grinning. "You didn't just build a house, you built a damn fortress." The party unfolded beautifully. Guests marveled at the oak-paneled Lee VYing room, the soundproofed office where Mara planned her next ventures, the backyard pool glowing under string lights. Laughter filled the air, and for a few hours Mara felt whole again. But near midnight, as the last guest sipped wine, Julian texted, "Alert! Tessa spotted near the property. She's at the street corner, not crossing the boundary. Police notified." Mara didn't flinch. She locked the doors via her phone, activated the backup security system, and kept smiling. No one noticed a thing. After everyone left, Sarah stayed to clean up, pausing on the terrace to look out at the valley. Tessa's mom called me yesterday, she said softly. Begged me to talk you into forgiving them. Said Tessa's a wreck, not eating, and you should let it go. Mara leaned against the railing, the night air cool against her skin. You know what felt good today? Throwing this party without worrying someone would crash it and take it all away. Sarah hugged her, saying nothing more. That night, Mara sat in her office, sketching ideas for a new project, a community center for women in trades. The VYLLA wasn't just a home anymore. It was a symbol of what she could do when she stopped bending. A week later, the doorbell rang again. The security system identified the VY sighter. Ethan Hayes, Tessa's fiancé. Mara frowned. They'd met once, briefly, at an engagement party she'd been guilt-tripped into attending. She opened the door and Ethan stood there, a thin folder in hand, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by something raw and unsteady. I didn't know where else to go, he said, his voice hoarse. Can we talk? She let him in, leading him to the Levying room. He sat stiffly, placing the folder on the coffee table. Tessa told me this house was hers, a wedding gift from her parents, under your name for tax reasons. I believed her. She's Convy Singh. But after your party, I saw your name carved into that wall in the office. I started digging. Mara crossed her arms, waiting. She got cagey when I asked for proof, he continued. Then I found out she's using her parents' names for a huge bank loan. I checked our joint account, money's vanishing. Transferred to some company called Kendrick Prestige Properties. I don't know what's real anymore. Mara's jaw tightened. The name sounded like a twisted echo of her own business. Ethan slid the folder toward her printouts of Tessa's social media posts, posing in front of Mars VYLLA, claiming it as her own design. One caption read, "My latest project. Luxury Levying, redefined." Another showed the kitchen. "Crafted by me for the modern family." She's impersonating you, Ethan said, his voice breaking. And those loan applications? The signatures look forged. Have you confronted her? Mara asked, her tone clipped. She denied it, accused me of not trusting her. But I think she's planning something bigger, screwing over me. Your family, investors, everyone. Mara pulled a USB drive from her desk, containing every document tied to the VYLLA. I'm sending this to my attorney. We need to stop her before she goes any further. Ethan nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. Thanks for not shutting me out. After he left, Mara emailed Julian with the new Vydinke, writing, she's not just lying, she's committing fraud. Let's end this. That night she sat by the pool, the water reflecting the stars, wondering how her sister had spiraled so far. The next afternoon, a security alert jolted her from a meeting. Motion detected. Main hall. Unauthorized entry. She opened the camera app and froze. Tessa stood in her Levying room, an iPad in hand, leading a group of 8 suited strangers investors, judging by their notepads. This is the flagship of Kendrick Prestige Properties, Tessa was saying, her voice smooth as silk. I designed every detail. Early investors get exclusive pre-sale perks. Mara's hand shook as she dialed 911. There's an intruder in my home, soliciting illegal investments. 18 Crest VYW Lane. Registered to Mara Kendrick. I have a restraining order, and it's all on camera. 10 minutes later, sirens wailed. The footage showed Tessa faltering as 2 officers entered. Rachel Kendrick, one barked. You're violating a restraining order and suspected of fraud. Come with us. This is a misunderstanding, Tessa cried. It's a family tour. The investors shifted, one muttering. She said she owned this? Mara arrived moments later, deed in hand, and faced the group. I'm Mara Kendrick, the real owner. Everything she told you is a lie. She's under investigation for fraud. Check your facts before you invest. Tessa was cuffed, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this in front of everyone? It's not me, Mara said coldly. It's the law. As the police took Tessa away, neighbors gawked from their lawns. Mara shut the door and leaned against it, exhaling. The truth was out, but the fight wasn't over. Hours later, Diane called, hysterical. "You had your sister arrested? You've ruined us." "I warned you," Mara said. "I won't let her steal my life. She's just trying to build a future. By scamming people with my name? If you defend her, you're on the wrong side." The call ended in sobs. Mara sent Julian the footage and Ethan's statement, writing lawsuit time. Impersonation, trespassing, fraud. 3 days later, she sat with Detective Elena Vasquez at the San Marcos PD. "This is bigger than we thought," Vasquez said. "Tessa's been impersonating you for 9 months using your social security number, your real estate license, everything. She's scammed investors out of $2.5 million through Kendrick Prestige Properties." Mara's stomach dropped. "My parents. They signed loan documents $800,000 worth. If they knew she was posing as you, they're accomplices. If not, they're VY Tims. Did you ever authorize this?" "Never," Mara said firmly. Vasquez nodded. "She's facing serious time. Your parents too, if they're culpable." Mara left the station numb, ignoring a flood of messages from Diane begging her to drop the charges. That night she emailed Julian. "Prepare a press statement. I won't let her drag more people down." A week later, a call from San Marcos General Hospital shook her. Tessa was in the maternity ward, 3 months pregnant. No one had known, not even Ethan, who'd ended their engagement. Diane called soon after, voice trembling. "She's pregnant, Mara. She's sick, stressed. The baby's at risk. You've won everything, let her go." Mara took a steadying breath. "She's not clinging to a future, Mom. She's clinging to a lie. If you care about that baby, let the law run its course. No one builds a life on stolen money." "You're heartless," Diane sobbed. "No," Mara said. "I'm done enabling." She hung up, then learned from Vasquez that her parents' signatures tied them to the fraud. They weren't just bystanders. They'd helped Tessa spin her web. At the preliminary hearing, Mara and Ethan testified. Tessa claimed it was all a sisterly misunderstanding, but the EVY Densbank records, footage, forged documents buried her. On sentencing day, the judge's voice boomed. "Tessa Kendrick, guilty of fraud, identity theft, and trespassing. 10 years in prison." Her parents got probation and $200,000 in fines for their role. Mara felt no triumph, just relief. That night, she sat by the pool, the lavender scent mingling with the breeze. A text from Julian read, "It's over. You've got it all back." She replied, "Not everything, but I did what was right." 6 months later, Mara stood on her terrace, wine in hand, watching the garden bloom. The scandal had exploded in the press, but her honesty turned it into a strange kind of VY Tory. Her company thrived, new projects rolled in, and she began hosting events for women in construction. At one, Sarah said, "You didn't just save your house, you built a legacy." One morning, a letter arrived in Tessa's handwriting. "I'm HVYing a girl," it read. "I want to change, Mara. I'll tell her about you, the woman who stood up. You don't have to forgive me, but I hope you find peace." Mara filed it away, unsure what to feel. She threw herself into Everlight Villas, affordable homes for single mothers, pouring her soul into every design. One evening, sketching plans, she added a tagline to her company's logo. "Success is yours. Don't let anyone dim your light." It wasn't just a motto, it was her truth, forged in fire, and she'd live it every day.